Imagine attending a wedding, a beautiful, luxurious wedding, only to discover that every single guest in the hall is not human, not like me, not like you, not like anyone you've ever known. This is the kind of story people whisper at night. A story that crawls under your skin because it feels too real to be a lie. A story that happened, or at least people swear it did. This is a true life story which happened in 1997 to a woman named Nora. Nora is from Kuwaiti, but now retold as Nora Williams in this story.
This is the circle of African tales, where African wisdom lives, and every story has a lesson.
Nora was a young, beautiful, well-known singer based in Lagos. Nora was everything a successful woman should look like. Long, wavy human hair wigs, skin that glowed under stage lights, perfectly tailored stage gowns, and a voice that could silence a noisy hall. She led a small performance group, 4 women, 2 men, all handsome, vibrant, perfectly styled. People hired them for big weddings, luxury birthdays, and private mansion parties. Nothing ever scared Nora, not until that night. One Thursday afternoon, Nora received a phone call from a man whose voice was too smooth, like it slid into your ear. He wanted to hire her group for his daughter's wedding. He didn't negotiate the price. He didn't hesitate. He simply said, "My people will appreciate your music. Come before 10 p.m. I'll send the address." That should have been the first warning. But work is work, and the pair was irresistible. When the address came in, Nora frowned. A private mansion on the outskirts of Epe, deep inside a forest-lined road, far from the noise of Lagos. But she had performed in remote luxury estates before, so nothing seemed unusual. On the night of the event, they drove in 2 black SUVs. Everyone wore vibrant outfits, glittering dresses, bright human hair wigs, sharp tuxedos, gold jewelry. They wanted to look their best. The mansion appeared suddenly in the darkness like it had been waiting for them. Tall, white, spotless, with long glass windows that reflected no light. There were no guards, no cars, no noise, just a single gate that opened automatically the moment their SUV stopped. Technology, one of the band members joked nervously, but Nora felt something cold wrap around her spine. Inside, the mansion was immaculate, marble flooring, crystal chandeliers, towering golden pillars, and flowers so fresh they looked unreal. The family greeted them warmly, all of them wearing bright clothes with wide smiles, but their eyes were strangely glassy, like something was moving behind them. Still, Nora brushed it off. People look strange sometimes. Money changes faces. At 10 p.m., they began setting up their equipment in the main hall, a massive ballroom with glittering walls and a ceiling painted like the night sky. There was no bride in sight yet, no groom, no guests. "Maybe it's a private event," Nora said, but her voice didn't sound confident anymore. At exactly 10:30, the guests began arriving. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. But here's what made Nora's blood run cold. No one walked in from the doorway. They appeared. Just appeared, standing where there had been empty space a moment earlier. Her drummer quietly whispered, "Did you see that?" Nora ignored him. The guests were unusually beautiful, too beautiful, glowing skin, perfect hair, faces symmetrical like AI-generated models. Men wore crisp white kaftans and expensive suits. Women wore shining gowns and exquisite wigs. But their movements were wrong. They didn't walk, they glided, they didn't talk. They murmured in voices that echoed strangely. By 11:30, things became even more unsettling. The guests began dancing, but not like humans dance. Their bodies bent too smoothly, too silently, like their bones were made of rubber or they had no bones at all. Their arms stretched longer than normal, their spines curved in unnatural arcs. Their feet barely touched the floor. It was beautiful but horrifying, hypnotic but deeply wrong. One woman approached Nora to greet her. Her palm touched Nora's cheek and Nora jerked instantly. Her skin was burning hot, not warm, not feverish, hot like metal left in the sun. Nora's backup singer, Chloe, looked at her with terror in her eyes. She had felt it too. Nora whispered without moving her lips, "Keep singing, don't stop, don't react." They played on. Their hands shook, their voices trembled, but they played. Then midnight came, and the nightmare began. The guests, or whatever they were, began changing. Not slowly, not subtly, instantly. The legs of some bent backward like an animal's. The hands of others elongated, turning thin and sharp. Their faces lost their smooth beauty and became something else. One man laughed, and his mouth opened wider than a human mouth should open. Another spun so fast, her body blurred into smoke. Nora felt bile rise in her throat. Her key bodies fainted. Chloe began to cry silently, but Nora forced her voice to stay steady. "Don't run," she whispered. "Not yet. They will kill us if we panic." The band played as these creatures bounced, moving in patterns that felt ancient, sacred, deadly. They were trapped, and they knew it. 3 a.m. The lights went out. Every single one. Not even a phone light could flicker. The darkness swallowed everything. Thick, alive, suffocating. Silence. Total silence. It felt like the whole mansion was holding its breath. Then, a cold wind blew through the hall. Not a normal cold. Not AC cold. Cold like something had opened a door to a forgotten place. Nora felt something brush past her. Soft, tall, invisible. She dropped her microphone. That was when she made the decision. Run now or die.
Nora didn't even think. The darkness was too heavy, too intelligent. It didn't feel like the normal kind of dark. It felt like something with eyes, something that knew them, one by one. "Run," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't scream, don't look back, just run." Chloe grabbed her arm so tightly her nails dug into her skin. One of the male band members, Calvin, was whispering prayers under his breath, his voice trembling. Nora couldn't see their faces, but she could feel their fear. It moved through the group like electricity. They slid off the stage, trying to stay quiet, feeling their way through the darkness with shaking hands. The hall was enormous, big enough to hold hundreds of guests, but now it felt like a gigantic pit with no exits. Nora reached out and touched the walls, searching for the doorway they entered from. Her fingers brushed velvet, cloth, something hanging. Then something else brushed her fingers, and this time it touched back. She froze. That hand was not human. It was tall, long, and cold like ice. Nora jerked her hand away, heart pounding so loudly she thought the creatures could hear it. Chloe muffled a gasp beside her. Then, a sound echoed through the hall. Not a scream, not a voice, a hum. A deep vibrating hum, like the sound of 1,000 bees inside a sealed jar. It started soft, then grew louder, deeper, angrier. It was coming from everywhere at once. Nora realized the jinns were still there, somewhere, in that same darkness. The hum rose. Then a laugh echoed, sharp, metallic, inhuman. Nora grabbed Chloe's waist. "Move!" They ran. But it felt like the darkness stretched the hallway longer and longer. Every few steps they bumped into something tall, soft, warm, alive. Something that breathed. Every time they touched one, the humming grew louder, as if the jinn were aware of their movements. Calvin whispered, I can't see anything. Shut up, they can hear us." Just as she said that, something whispered from inches behind her ear. "Where are you going, singer?" Her entire body went cold. She didn't turn around. She didn't breathe. She didn't think. She ran. The darkness shifted, like it tried to wrap around them. Something brushed her hair. Something else tugged at her dress. She could feel hands, too many hands, reaching, grabbing, pulling. "Don't stop!" Nora screamed, no longer caring if they heard her. They pushed forward, until finally, her hand hit wood. A door. She shoved it open so hard she nearly fell forward. Cold night air slapped her face like a blessing. "Out! Out!" she yelled. The band members stumbled through the doorway, falling onto the grass outside the mansion. They didn't stop to look back. They didn't wait for anyone. They just ran. They sprinted across the yard toward the SUVs, but the cars weren't where they parked them. They looked around in panic. The entire driveway was empty. What? Where are the cars? Calvin cried. They were right there. Chloe sobbed. They were... Another band member stuttered. But Noura knew. The mansion was playing with them. She turned and looked behind them and nearly collapsed. The mansion they had just run from was no longer lit. No music, no guests, no sign of a wedding. It stood cold, black, empty, a massive silent shell. Like nothing had happened inside it at all. Or worse, like it had swallowed everything. Don't look at it, Noura whispered. Don't give it attention. Just move. They ran into the road, barefoot, breathless, shaking like leaves in a storm. Finally, Noura spotted headlights in the distance. They're SUVs, but the drivers were not inside. Both vehicles sat with their doors open, keys in the ignition, headlights pointing at the mansion like two accusing eyes. We didn't leave the doors open, Calvin whispered. No, Noura said. We didn't. They piled into the first SUV. Noura wasn't even sure her hands touched the steering wheel. Everything felt unreal, floating. She started the engine. The car groaned, choked, then roared to life. As Noura turned the car around to flee, the mansion's front lights suddenly flickered back on, bright, white, welcoming, like the wedding was starting all over again. And in those windows, in every window, silhouettes stood watching them. Tall silhouettes, bent silhouettes, some with horns, some with limbs that stretched like shadows on water. They didn't blink, they didn't move, they just watched. Noura floored the accelerator. The SUV shot forward so violently everyone screamed. She didn't breathe until they hit the express road, until the mansion was nothing but a tiny dot in the dark. No one spoke for the entire drive back to Lagos. When they finally reached the city, Noura pulled over at a brightly lit fuel station and burst into tears. Chloe and Calvin sat in silence, shaking. Someone finally asked, voice small and broken, What? What did we just play for? Noura whispered, Not humans. We played for something else. There was no sleep that night. There wouldn't be any sleep for a long time. If you're enjoying the story, please subscribe. Let's continue. The next morning, Noura and the band decided to go back to retrieve their equipment. They drove in broad daylight, trying to reassure themselves that the mansion would look different, normal, harmless. But when they reached the location, there was nothing there. No mansion, no gate, no driveway, no flowers. Just a wide stretch of overgrown land, untouched and wild. Not even a foundation. As if the house had never existed. As if it had melted back into the earth. Noura stepped out of the SUV slowly, hands trembling. Her heart felt heavy, as if something was watching them from an invisible corner. We were here. We were right here. We were inside this exact place. Noura couldn't respond. Her throat was tight because she knew the truth. They hadn't been hired to perform at a wedding. They had been invited into a world humans are never supposed to see. And they only escaped because the darkness allowed them to. For days after the incident, Noura felt like something had followed her home. Not physically, not in a way she could point at, but in the shadows, in the corners of her apartment, in the quiet moments of the night. Something waited. She would wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone was standing beside her bed. Sometimes she heard faint humming, the same hypnotic hum from that mansion, drifting through her walls even though her neighbors were asleep. Chloe stopped talking altogether. Calvin refused to sleep with the lights off. Two of the younger backup singers resigned from music completely and traveled home to their families in Akure, refusing to ever perform again. On the third day, Noura gathered her band members in her living room. Everyone looked drained, pale, exhausted, terrified. Even their expensive wigs and bright clothes couldn't hide the fear written across their faces. We have to talk about it, Noura whispered. No, Chloe snapped. No, talking about it will bring them back. Calvin rubbed his forehead. Noura,
What happened to us? Because that was not normal. That was not human. I know what I saw. Nora closed her eyes. She didn't want to remember, but she knew they couldn't ignore it anymore. We performed at a wedding that didn't belong to humans, she said slowly. We were invited into another realm or another reality, and we weren't supposed to be there. A deep silence fell over the room. Calvin shivered. Nora, what do we do now? Before she could answer, Nora's phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart hammered. Nobody moved. With trembling fingers, she picked up the call. She didn't speak. The voice on the other end spoke first. It wasn't human, not male, not female, just a sound shaped like a voice. You left something behind. Nora froze. Her lungs forgot how to walk. The voice continued. Your music still plays here. Then the line went dead. Nora dropped the phone like it was burning. We're leaving Lagos tonight. No one argued. They packed what they could and drove to stay in a friend's guest house in Ibadan, far from the mansion's location. For a while, it brought a bit of peace. A week passed, then 2, then 3, but the nightmares didn't stop. Nora dreamt of the ballroom, the chandelier melting like wax, the guest's limbs twisting, the burning hot hands touching her cheek. In some dream, she was back in the darkness of the hall, running, but never finding the door. When she finally reached a therapist, the woman stared at her for a long time after Nora told her story. Then the therapist said a sentence that chilled Nora to her bones. You're not hallucinating. Something opened that night, and sometimes, when a door opens, both sides can step through. Nora never returned. She quit performing. Her band quietly dissolved. They all avoided nighttime events. They avoided lonely roads. They avoided anything that looked too perfect, too luxurious, too quiet. Some months later, a journalist contacted Nora. He had heard rumors of musicians running from spirits and a wedding that erased itself. Nora refused to speak to him. But he sent her one photo anyway. A blurred, grainy image taken by a hiker a week after the event. It showed a patch of forest. In the very center, between the trees, was the faint outline of a tall, white building. A mansion that shouldn't have been there. A mansion that had vanished. A mansion waiting for its next event. Nora deleted the message, blocked the journalist, and prayed. Years passed. People forgot. The band members scattered across Nigeria. Nora became a vocal coach, teaching from her home and avoiding large gatherings. But even now, decades later, whenever she walks past a wedding hall, she pauses. She listens. She watches. Just in case the music is too smooth. Just in case the guests move too gracefully. Just in case a mansion appears when no mansion should be there. She never takes late-night wedding bookings again, and she warns every young musician that crosses her path. If a wedding feels too perfect, too magical, too silent, don't go. Some celebrations are not meant for humans. And that is why till today, people call it the jinn wedding. The night the music wasn't meant for us. Never ignore strange signs. Never accept an invitation that feels too good to be true. And never remain in a place where your spirit feels uneasy. Even if the people around you look beautiful, wealthy, or welcoming, your intuition is a gift. Respect it, protect yourself. If you were Nora, would you have stayed and kept playing or run immediately? Do you think the mansion was real or another realm disguised as reality? Do jinn coexist invisibly with humans more than we realize? Would you ever perform at a nighttime event in a remote location after hearing this story? What part of the story scared you the most?